Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. The call to strengthen ties between the motherland of Africa and the Caribbean intensifies. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Monday, 24th October 2022. Details when we return.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. There is a call to strengthen ties between Africa and CARICOM. This call is not new. It has been made by CARICOM leaders from time to time, but this latest call comes from the king of a particular region in Ghana, who says Africa is as multicultural as Trinidad and Tobago. Nicole M. Romney of TV6 News reports.
Okatachie Osafo-Boakye, the ruler of a region in Ghana, who makes his first visit to Trinidad and Tobago as part of the Africa CARICOM program, says bigger countries have their eyes on Africa, but he believes nations like ours could benefit from a closer relationship.
Everybody today wants a piece of Africa. The Chinese are coming into Africa. The Europeans are coming. The Americans are coming. But we have Africans who have a birthright to what is in Africa, who have a right to Africa spiritually, and something that belongs to them. So if persons want part of Africa, why don't we come, call persons who are already here, who have a right to whatever we have, to be the ambassadors to take Africa to the world?
He says Africa is filled with wealth, and step by step, both CARICOM and his region can collaborate and build for the benefit of citizens.
Little drops of water makes a mighty ocean. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. And the step that CARICOM, and it is not just CARICOM, the AU is making this call. Everybody, the
African Union.
Yeah, the African Union.
Yes.
Everybody of an African descent recognizes that. Our bulk of potential and wealth rests with our people. And our people who are the beneficiaries of what is there must be given the opportunity to form this kind of, to harness and unlock and develop what is already theirs.
Nana Osafo-Boakye says, you don't see lions in the streets of Africa as people are taught, nor do people sleep in trees. That, he says, is the teaching of those seeking to depict Africa negatively. He adds, our two countries are not that different, despite what some believe.
The world is a global village. Today, by a punch, you know whatever is happening everywhere in the world. Caribbean, Trinidad is not different from Africa. And I can even tell you, probably we even have more Indian persons in Ghana than maybe here.
I'm sure you do.
And we have more Chinese there than here. So if you're talking about multicultural, we have the same. It is not different at all.
Nicole M. Romney, TV6 News.
St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister Drew justifies government travel plans in September. Andre Huey of SKN News reports.
Prime Minister Dr. Terence Drew has sought to justify why members of his cabinet travelled in droves in September. The Prime Minister, during his first press conference on Monday this week, said St. Kitts and Nevis needed to re-establish relationships with international partners and potential investors, which made it necessary for members of his government to travel to these meetings, most notably the United Nations General Assembly.
The reason why we had to take those trips, and I want to say it here, it was around the time of the UN. There's only one time in the year when you can meet almost all the countries in one setting, and that is at the UN. That is an opportunity that cannot be missed. As a new government coming in, our new administration, we had to make sure that we made those connections, because we would have lost a whole year to make those connections. So when we traveled, we didn't travel to be on camelback and on the beach in dark shades. We travel to work. And so that is why the ministers had to travel, to make sure that we reconnect with our international community and to say to them that St. Kitts and Nevis is back. They would tell you that when they traveled, people were like, wow, we have not seen a representative from St. Kitts and Nevis in 7 years.
Meanwhile, Tourism Minister Marsha Henderson also said the relationship with especially international cruise ship partners was severely dented under the previous administration and needed repairing.
We dropped the ball when our partners were calling on us, I think, for shelter for their crew. Now, we just returned from Santo Domingo, and they made it clear that a number of countries in the region, including St. Kitts and Nevis, as we were called upon during the pandemic to house a number of crew members who were on board the ships, and they said we did not respond. That resulted in a breakdown in relations with our partners, particularly in the cruise industry, and we started restoration to the relationships in August when we took a team to Miami and met with a number of our partners and started the restoration to the relationship. They have commended countries like Barbados and St. Martin, and they applaud the leadership there. And we now have competent leadership at the realm of the country, but we had to work hard to restore those relations.
The government has been in for criticism by some members of the public and in the political circles for having majority of cabinet members traveling in early September on government business, barely a month after being sworn in. This prompted critics to question who was running the government. But the Prime Minister reiterated at his press conference that it was important for most ministers to travel to repair broken relationships and declare that St. Kitts and Nevis was open for business. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
Mark Brantley, appointed opposition leader in St. Kitts and Nevis's National Assembly. Andre Huey again reports.
Premier of Nevis, Mark Brantley, leader of the Concerned Citizens Movement, CCM, has been appointed leader of the opposition in the National Assembly of St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Brantley, elected representative for Nevis 9 in the August 5th federal elections, received his instrument of appointment from His Excellency Sir S.W. Tapley-Seaton, Governor-General of St. Kitts and Nevis, on October 10th. In an interview on Freedom FM this week, Mr. Brantley said, "I can confirm that His Excellency has appointed me as leader of the opposition. As you know, pursuant to the constitutional provisions, the leader of the opposition is the person who, in his opinion, commands the support of a majority of those who are not on the government benches. There are currently 5 elected members on the opposition benches, 1 from the People's Labour Party, 1 from the People's Action Movement, and 3 from the CCM. And so, certainly, the CCM has a majority of seats on the opposition benches, and it was the considered view that, based on my experience in Parliament and based on the time that I spent there, that I could provide that support in that position. I could provide credible alternatives in terms of views and opinions expressed in the Parliament, and that I had the breadth of experience that was necessary." Premier Brantley began his parliamentary career at the National Assembly as opposition leader in August 2007, having won a by-election in Nevis that year. He served as opposition leader until 2015. He pledged that as opposition leader, he would continue to engage in mature and meaningful debate in pursuit of the advancements of the country and the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Mr. Brantley served under the Team Unity administration as Minister of Foreign Affairs and Aviation before he, along with the leader of the People's Action Movement, Sean Richards, led the breakup of the coalition, prompting a snap election in August. Brantley's CCM retained all 3 seats in Parliament, but the former coalition partners on St. Kitts were only able to retain 2 of the 6 seats they held previously. I'm Andre Huey for SKN Newsline.
As the world is heading back to normal, the World Health Organization is still hard at work. This as various diseases are yet again emerging to the surface. More in this CVM News report.
Speaking at the recent World Health Organization's media briefing, Director General Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus says there's been an uptick in Ebola cases.
First to Uganda, where WHO is continuing to support the government to respond to an outbreak of Ebola disease in 5 districts. So far, there are 54 confirmed and 20 probable cases with 39 deaths and 14 people have recovered. More than 660 contacts are currently under active follow-up. Our primary focus now is to support the government of Uganda to rapidly control and contain this outbreak.
Meanwhile, the WHO boss says Haiti is experiencing a cholera outbreak.
According to the Ministry of Public Health and Population, as of last Saturday, there were 224 suspected cases of cholera and 16 deaths. 1/4 of suspected cases are among children aged under 5 years. On Sunday, the ministry also confirmed a cholera outbreak in the National Pensionary of Port-au-Prince with 39 suspected cases and 9 deaths.
He says the WHO, along with other health groups, are working closely with the Haitian government to mitigate the spread of the virus. However, Dr. Ghebreyesus says samples are a challenge to access as gang wars are preventing some healthcare workers from moving about. In the meantime, he says floods in Pakistan could cause the spread of diseases.
Many more people than died in the floods could die from disease in the coming weeks and months. There is now a malaria outbreak in 32 districts, while the incidence of cholera, dengue, measles, and diphtheria is also increasing in flood-affected districts. We expect the situation to continue to deteriorate, but so far, international support has not been at the scale or speed needed.
Javine McLean, CVM Live.
Jamaica's government exceeded planned spend for April to August 2022. Javon Keys of TVJ Business Day has more.
The government spent $299 billion for the April to August 2022 period. This was $2.5 billion or 0.8% over budget. Chairman of the Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC, Keith Duncan, says this also reflects an increase in spending compared to last year.
This expenditure was $15.7 billion, 5.5% higher than the outturn for the corresponding period 2021. As we said, the recurrent program spending reflected a faster pace of procurement than anticipated. Interest costs also surpassed budget due to higher costs for servicing domestic debt, as we have seen in the movement of domestic interest rates with the T-bills.
Capital expenditure for the period, however, declined.
Fell short of budget by $1.4 billion due to a slower than planned pace of project execution, mainly driven by unfavorable weather conditions.
Mr. Duncan, however, says the state's income was ahead of budget, outweighing the excess spend.
Total tax receipts of $277 billion for the review period reflected a surplus of $27.6 billion relative to budget. This outturn was also above the $218 billion, which was for April to August 2021. That's a significant increase over the previous corresponding period year over year.
This was driven by an increase in special consumption tax collection due to the higher than projected value of goods coming into the country. More general consumption tax GCT was also collected in tandem with increased economic activity. Revenue and grants for April to August was $297 billion, $30 billion better than budgeted. Non-tax revenue was almost $4 billion more than projected.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.